Hello everyone, this is Visa and I'm coming at you, so to speak, with my updated Exodidolls deck for the post-April clusterfuck ban list. Now, as expected, this deck does not play to the same level that the previous Exodidolls deck, but dropping in those PKs has enabled me to get extra consistency in deck thinning, which means, provided you have the right cards, it actually is quicker in getting through the deck because you're thinning the deck that much more quickly. The problem is that it has opened the possibility to brick first turn. So it's still a work in progress, but I wanted to give you where I'm up to at the deck at the moment, and if you have any suggestions, as always, please feel free to comment in the comment section below, and we'll go from there. So you have 4 normal pieces of Exodia and the head of Exodia. That is your wind condition. Oh, wind condition? Wind condition. 2 battle fader, because if you do brick or you need to survive that extra turn, battle fader is your champion. Given Vanities is at 1, it's not so much of a problem. The only thing you've got to look out for is Solemn Strike, but hey-ho. 1 Mathematician, still toying around with Mathematician and Squamata as to a card, and Wonder One to a certain degree, as to whether or not I might drop one of these cards and run one of the cards from the side deck. However, the great thing with Mathematician is if you go first, you can obviously send Squamata, then Hedgehog, then pull either Falco or Beast to the hand, providing you've got a DWD or a Hand Destruction. You can get their effects off as well. Also, I always like playing Mathematician in conjunction with Wonder Wand. I suppose Wonder Wand, unless you're flipping one of the Shadow monsters face up in your own turn, Mathematician is usually the target that gets Wonder Wanded, so to speak. But you are running numerous spellcasters, so you can utilise it with that. But Mathematician is great for starting off those combos and getting Squamata to the grave, which is by far your most important play. Although it does allow you to now send some PK cards, which if you've got some Shaddolls in hand, you might think you want to go down the route of deck thinning with PKs as well. So there is a little bit more tech to it. So I suppose actually this probably would stay in the deck, and I consider one of the Squamatas coming out. But 1 Mathematician, 2 Beast, 2 Falco, 2 Hedge, 2 Squamata. That is your Shaddoll engine. With Dark World Dealings and Hand Destruction, you'll be able to send these guys to the graveyard and get off their effects subsequently. And it's just allowing that deck thinning, which is even more important now that we've lost Upstart and Chicken Game, because the draw power in this deck isn't as readily available. You don't draw into it as frequently. So this is the trade-off you have to make, but the Shadow engine still remains the same. So the one thing I have splashed into the deck, as I discussed in my banlist video, are some PKs. So I've got 2 Cloak, 2 Fragile Armor, and 1 Ragged Gloves. So Fragile Armor, when it's sent to the graveyard, when it's in the graveyard rather, you can banish it from your graveyard, and providing you've got another Phantom Knight monster in hand, you can send that Phantom Knight monster to hand and draw a card. Now ideally you then want to be sending either Ancient Cloak or Ragged Gloves, and you'll get off their effects. So Ancient Cloak, you can banish it from the graveyard, and you can add a Phantom Knight card from your deck to your hand, which is great in deck thinning, particularly if you've got one of those draw and discard cards. You can just basically use the card you bring to hand as cannon fodder, or just to mean that you're not burning through other cards. Or you can bring Ragged Glove, which if you banish from the graveyard, you can send 1 Phantom Knights card from your deck to the graveyard. So again, there is that consistency in deck thinning. Where they all work quite well is the 5 monsters are all dark, so thank you Konami for giving me something, even if it isn't the best draw card ever. I mean, Allure is still pretty good, but there were better alternatives. But anyway, I'm trying to make the most of what draw power is available, so we're running 2 Allure of Darkness. You can see why Konami have brought this card back to 2, because obviously they're trying to push Phantom Knights, they're releasing Blackwing support. There are some other decks recently that are coming out with some dark monsters. I know like the Blue Eyes support they've got some dark monsters in Blue Eyes, and there are a few other decks that will benefit from this. So Konami are basically trying to throw a bone, although it's a smaller sized bone in what they've thrown to us in the past. It doesn't make up for Chicken Game and Upstart, but hey ho, we'll deal with it. So 2 Allure, 2 Dark Factory, because you can send your Exodia monsters, well at least the normal ones, to the graveyard with Hand Destruction, Dark World Dealings, or Foolish Burial, or even Mathematician if you needed to. And you can use these guys, the Dark Factory cards, to pull the 2 cards back from your hand. So, if you've got 3 cards in hand, what a good play might be, use Foolish to send one of the Exodia pieces to the graveyard, summon the other piece, crash into it, and then use Dark Factory to pull them both back to hand. That works really quite nicely if you've got 1 day of peace, or of course if you can get game from it. 3 Dark World Dealings, because we need to be able to get off those Exodidolls monster effects. And also, to a lesser degree, you can then subsequently get off the PK effects as well. So 3 Dark World, 1 Foolish, 3 Hand Destruction, 1 Day of Peace, 1 Upstart. How stupid does that sound saying? But 1 Upstart Goblin, 1 Wonder Wand. This is still in here at the moment, even if it is a slower card and is vulnerable to Twin Twister and MST. The draw 2 is an important mechanic that this deck needs, although any equipped card is vulnerable to any quick play magic or trap card that can pop back row. But there you go, 3 Legacy and 3 Reckless Greed. You've got to play the Reckless Greed and you've got to play Legacy because you need that draw power, and given they've taken everything else away from us, you desperately need that draw power. One thing I will say with the consistency testing that I've been doing is if you can get off multiple Reckless Greeds, not just 1 but 2 and 3 is ideal. I mean 3 you're pretty much going to win the game, but if you can get 2 off, because you've got so much graveyard utility, you will find that you will draw through your deck more quickly than you did with the previous incarnation of Exodidolls. However, as I said, this deck is liable to brick more readily. So that being said, the only card I'm putting in a side deck which I'm tempted to put in is Reinforcement of the Army, because the 5 PK monsters are warrior type, and bringing one of them to hand, obviously again repeating myself, is deck thinning, but then if you have a DWD or HD in card, you can pitch them to the grave and you can get those Phantom Knight effects rolling. So whether I would bring in Reinforcement for Wonder Wand or one of the Squamatas, because I'm perhaps finding that opening multiple Squamatas is, obviously it's not great, and it did happen in the previous deck, but there were more ways around it because you had more draw power, and you could always send a Squamata to the grave and set one on the field. But certainly that might be a better way of playing the deck. As you'll notice, Soul Charge is still in the side deck. I really don't think you need to run it in the main, and I don't think particularly now with the current ban list you absolutely cannot run it in the main deck, because we've lost 5 draw cards. We need to not be clogging up the deck with what ifs. At the end of the day, this deck is about drawing through your deck as quickly as possible. Doesn't really offer much in counterplay, so Soul Charge could open up some extra deck plays. You could go into some Synchros and Xyz monsters, but that was just really more for stall, and the aggro it gives you with the meta these days, your monsters are liable to be off the board by the end of your opponent's next turn, so there's no real need to run Soul Charge in the main deck. But the side deck's the same. The only thing I've tweaked in the extra is we've got that Utopia in there, and we've got that Utopia the Lightning, because that seems like if you can go rank 4, then that seems like a more optimum play at the moment. So Utopia the Lightning seeing it some game time. But there you go, just a short quick deck profile. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As I said, perhaps not as great as the previous version, just because it had that speed to it, but where I've lost the speed, I've tried to make up for in a little bit of deck thinning, so the draw power you do manage to get off ends up being a little, the percentages of drawing into the cards you need is a little bit higher, so you're playing ratios. You're deck thinning, so when you do get draws off, you're more likely to draw into the cards you need. But this is the first stage post-banlist Exodidolls deck, and it is a work in progress, but I think we'll leave it at that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.